Do you get confused about which hand you're supposed to catch with in the Ashtanga Yoga primary series? If you do, don't worry about it. You're not at all alone. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most common questions that Ashtanga Yoga teachers get asked around the world relentlessly by all students all the time. And I think a big part of the reason for that is that somehow we're not really able to give people a straight answer. And so what I'm going to do right now is break down for you the short answer, super clear, super straightforward, right to the point, and then a bit more of a nuanced, longer form answer that's going to really teach you how to catch, what the real intention is, and also how to do it in a way that will allow you to walk into any Mysore room anywhere in the world, and provided that the teacher themselves has learned it in the traditional context, like maybe they traveled to Mysore to learn it, but they will be able to see almost immediately that person knows what they're doing. And so, short answer, for those postures where you're going to go forward and bind around the foot, so that is Paschimottanasana, for example, or any of those unilateral postures from Triang Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana all the way through to Jana Shirshasana C and others as well. But essentially, when you're going to go forward and bind to the foot, there, the answer is it's not specified. And you'll get this exact same answer even if you muster up all your courage and stand up in front of hundreds of people to ask Shirachi in the setting of a conference or something like that, which hand catches which wrist. The answer is it's not specified in the Ashtanga Yoga method. So that usually comes with this follow-up question of, oh no, how are we going to make it symmetrical? How are we going to do this? The thing is that because it's not specified, you can do it however you want. You can make it as symmetrical as you want. My personal advice would be either catch with the hand that goes around the outside of the foot or the hand that comes around the inside of the foot. That way, at least when you're doing both sides, you will alternate the hand which is catching, and that will be a little bit more symmetrical. With that being said, if you always want to catch with one hand, you can kind of do that. It's not that asymmetrical. It's not going to create like a huge amount of physical imbalance in your body. It's kind of like the way that you always hold your spoon in one hand. It doesn't really create like a massive amount of imbalance. It's more like a sort of cognitive thing or nervous system thing. But just to systematize your practice in a way that kind of makes it symmetrical on both sides and your body gets used to it so you don't always have to think about it. I generally will never stop people's practice and tell them to change what they're doing because ultimately for the Ashtanga method, it's not specified. Now, my personal preference is the one that comes on the outside. And the reason for that is that sometimes when you go with a hand that comes from the inside, you might end up turning your foot very slightly. It's super subtle and not that important. Another reason though is that when the foot is on the floor, you have all the space and time in the world to set up your hand position. It doesn't really matter how you catch there. But you come to some other postures later down the line, like for example, Kranchasana, where your foot is going to be raised. And so it's much easier when you go around the outside, and that hand will actually set your foot in that place and give you a little bit more space and time to get the wrist into your hand. If you go with the hand on the inside, it doesn't quite have that same sense of stability and sense of support. Now, of course, you can just do that on Kranchasana if it works for you, but ultimately you'll figure out which hand you want to catch with. Now, the way that we catch is more important actually than which hand we catch with. So ideally, if you can reach it, you'll bind to the wrist and then this other hand creates this soft fist with the thumb outside. It's this exact position, kind of like you're holding an insect in your hand. It's not going to be this really tense one where you're holding onto the thumb. It's definitely not going to be this really loose one. And it's definitely not going to be to create some sort of creative little expression. It's always soft fist, thumb outside. That's the way that Shirachi describes it. And essentially that creates the right energetics from the hand that's going to send that same energy right through the arm. And so what we do by creating that closed loop locking to the hand is that we've got a loop of energy that we can use to pull. So pulling back with the shoulders creates this feeling of pull towards the midline of your body, while at the same time, you're binding to the foot and slightly pressing forward into the ball of the foot. And that creates this feeling of push. You've got two opposing energetic forces, and that creates the sort of energetics that we look for when we do asanas. Now, in the case of those postures where you're going forward, the answer is it's not specified. What about the other ones? What about, for example, Marichyasana positions, Paschasana? You've got a couple of other ones where it's not quite the same, but you do use the same wrist bind and the same soft fist thumb outside position. Now, in those cases, let's take Marichyasana, for example. It is specified. It's going to be the hand that goes around the Marichyasana leg. So for example, on Marichyasana A, on the right side, you'll have the right knee up, you'll hook the right arm around that leg, and it's going to be the right hand to catch the other wrist. On the left side, it's all the same, but on the left knee up, left arm goes around, left hand catches. In the case of the twists, Marichyasana C, for example, on the right side, you'll have the right knee going up. The right side will be the Marichyasana leg, but because you're twisting, you'll take the left arm around that leg, and therefore it will be the left hand to catch the other wrist. Same theory for Pashasana. The arm that goes around to create the loop, that is going to be the hand to catch the other wrist. All right, so I hope all of this is helpful. I know that these are small details, but they're small details that do need to be addressed. Essentially, what we want is to start to move through in a way that is very consistent so your nervous system can start moving the body and you don't have to go through this whole cognitive process of how and why should I be doing this and am I doing it wrong and everything. It starts to become very automatic and your body just moves without thought, and so your practice becomes more of a moving meditation. All right, subscribe for all the videos. See you next time.